This is the Patriots Drive podcast.
We are all Patriots.
Where we discuss, analyze, and answer questions to all things happening in the NFL and with our New England Patriots. Now, here's your host, Cole Kelly.
Let's go!
Welcome into another edition of the Patriots Drive podcast. Patriots had their season finale. Their season came to an end this past weekend, Saturday, against the Buffalo Bills. It was a stomping. It was one of the worst games I've seen for the Patriots in a long time. Defense got absolutely obliterated. But what were your initial thoughts after seeing their season come to an end and kind of reflecting on how that game went, how poor it was, but overall kind of just the season in general and where this team ranked up kind of in line with your expectations?
Yeah, I think I had my expectations at the start of the year at 11-6 going into the playoffs. And I mean, when you look back on the season, 11-6 was very doable. A couple close games here and there, ones that, we killed ourselves in as Patriots fans. It was hard to see. First game against Miami should have won. A fumble kills us there. Winnable ones against Dallas, Tampa Bay, you're a field goal away. I mean, there's a lot to look back on and be disappointed on. And, the way we finished after the bye week was definitely frustrating, but you got to put this into perspective. This is a very successful season for Patriots fans. People were writing us off, before the season even started. People thought Bill was crazy for cutting Cam Newton and rolling with Mac Jones. Mac Jones has a great year, borderline top 10 quarterback numbers wise on the season. One of the better rookie seasons we've seen from any rookie quarterback in the past 10, 15 years, outside of maybe Justin Herbert and a couple other guys. But I thought it was a successful season. And yeah, I have a sour taste in my mouth because of how it ended, but there was a lot of good to take and a lot to build on going into next season.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. The season was obviously looking at it. The beginning of the year, I predicted 10-7. That was with Cam Newton starting, though. So I thought Mac may start this year, maybe halfway through, or maybe not at all. Rookie quarterbacks, you don't see start very often. And for the reason that you've seen with Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence, some of these guys having troubles and the teams around them are a big part of that. But it's not easy to be a rookie quarterback in this league. And seeing Mac Jones start from week one, come back from 2-4, this team turn the season around and make a playoff run. They were number one in the AFC at one point. They were looking like the best team in the league, which is crazy to say. But when this team's fired on all cylinders, they have a lot of potential. And I think they played over their actual talent level. I think they played better than they actually were as a team. But I also think the past 5 weeks when they went 1-4, I think they played worse than their talent level. I think this team's better than that. I don't think that's what this team is going to be. And I'm happy with the season. I'm happy with the results. I think it's hard not to be. Jacoby had a good year. Kendrick Bourne had a good year. Hunter Henry had a good year. Obviously, there were some disappointments in there. Obviously, certain guys slowed down as the season went on. Granted, injuries or different things. We don't really know. But overall, you got to be happy with all the new pieces they added. First year in the system, all these guys. And just seeing how this team really meshed and bonded together. These guys loved playing together. This group wants to stay together. I don't think any of them want anybody to leave. This is one of the most close-knit groups I've seen in a long time. And I think this core is something that they could really build on. And having that year 2 jump, I think, is a real thing in this system. Jacoby talked about it. Granted, he was a rookie and talking about his second year in the league, but we got some young guys on this team that have a lot of potential, and a lot of the new guys are still younger and have a lot of room to grow in this system. So I think there's certain things and certain aspects of the season that hurt the team as a whole and certain players and the play style of how this team wanted to play. But overall, making the playoffs, I know it didn't go how we wanted in the playoffs, and that game was horrendous. Their last month of the year was horrendous, but overall in the season, you told me we lost in the wild card round to the Bills. I think that at least is at expectations for just about anybody who was realistic heading into the season.
Yeah, and you look back at the draft class and you look at, the top 4 picks. 3 of the 4 were huge additions. Barmore, Jones, Ramondre Stevenson, and then we'll look at what Ronnie Perkins does when he's not hurt, Cameron McGrone, Joshua Bledsoe. Like, a lot of the new guys, the young guys, they hit. Like, we hit on our draft class last year, and that's huge. What we need to improve on going into next year, obviously, is the youth at the linebacker position in the front 7, getting a little younger, faster, mobile guys out there to compete with the Josh Allens of the AFC, because there's a lot of them. There's Josh Allen, there's Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes can scramble if he wants to. Justin Herbert has wills. So, I mean, you look at the guys that we drafted, and you don't look at them and you say, okay, those guys are going to be a problem moving forward. In my opinion, I thought Van Noy and Hightower and them played great in the middle half of the year, but they're older. They needed a break. They can't carry it all. We were trying to hold on to that boogeyman, defense from 3 years ago and still try to make them championship caliber linebacking core. And we saw it just doesn't work out. So, you retool that. You did a great job retooling the front seven. You got Judon, you draft Barmore. Godchow was a good addition. You do a good job, adding some core pieces at the receiver position with Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar, Hunter Henry is there. Like you do a good job retooling this team. Now you got to go back and complete the rebuild. You found out what your weaknesses are. You go improve on it. You still got young guys on this team that can improve, make a huge year two leap. We're seeing a lot of guys this year that were rookies last year that are having that sophomore season. That's a breakout. I mean, Justin Jefferson had a great first year. He's amazing again. Joe Burrow coming off an injury, having a great year. There's a lot of guys that make that sophomore leap because, the rookie, it is hard to be a rookie in the NFL. It's overwhelming. There's a lot more to it. Football-wise, it's demanding physically and mentally. So I'm excited to see what these young guys do, make that second-year leap, and then how Bill builds around these guys. Mac Jones, he's the future. Colin Cowherd puts out there, we should trade for Russell Wilson. Why would we trade for a 34-whatever-year-old quarterback and have to do this again in 3 years? When you got, how hard is it? Look at the Jets. Look at the Jaguars. Look at guys that have been dying to find a franchise quarterback, and we feel like we've gotten ours after year one. Looking, and we draft him at 15. We don't use a top 10 pick on him. We don't have to trade up and destroy our future in picks and get a new guy. So I'm excited with where the future is of this team and where it's going. It's just, we were a little bit too short this year, and injuries did play a key role. Jalen Mills, he wouldn't have made up 30 points, obviously, but he would have helped. Having Jonathan Jones healthy at the end of the year would have been huge too. Like there's still depth pieces and main pieces that need to be added. And that's encouraging because we still made the playoffs with a lot of holes in this team.
Yeah. And I want to touch on that point. But let's get this out of the way. Let's touch on this real quick. Need a wide receiver one. And this is something that we kind of talked about all last offseason. And then they grabbed Aguilar and then they grabbed Kendrick Bourne. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. Then they grabbed the two tight ends. And I was like, okay, I can see how it's going to be okay if they don't add a top tier wide receiver based off the two tight ends that they had. And one of the things coming into the year, we thought this was going to be a heavy two tight end set system with Jonnu and Hunter Henry. They ran 18.6% of their snaps were out of two tight end sets. People were expecting that was going to be like 50, 60% at the beginning of the year. So these guys were not utilized in two tight end sets as much as we thought. Jonnu obviously being a huge disappointment year one is a big factor, but Mac Jones needs a wide receiver one. I thought we might be able to get away with it with Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, and Jacoby, them all playing well. And if the tight ends played well, I think you still can maybe get away with it, but there's too many high-flying offenses in this league, especially in the AFC. If you want to make it to the Super Bowl out of the AFC, you're going to have to keep up with some of these offenses. Your defense, no matter how good it is, isn't going to hold down the Chiefs forever. It's not going to hold down the Bills forever. It's not going to hold down Justin Herbert, whoever. There's so much talent in the AFC on the offensive side of the ball. And let me read this stat real quick from Ryan Spagnoli. Per PFF, Josh Allen in 2019, before he got Stephon Diggs, was QB 25 via PFF. Josh Allen in 2020 and 2021, when he had Stephon Diggs, QB 6 and QB 10. So that's a huge jump right there. Joe Burrow, 2020, pre-Jamar Chase, QB 18 per PFF. Joe Burrow in 2021, QB 1 for PFF when he had Jamar Chase. Mac Jones was QB 11 this year in his first year. So imagine the jump that he can make if you get him a true number one receiver and a guy who can create mismatches for the defense and have defensive coordinators up all night trying to figure out how to stop this guy. It just opens up everything for the offense, and it gives him a guy that he can rely on. A true number one receiver would have caught that ball for a touchdown that he threw to Aguilar. Aguilar tried to let that ball basically drop in his hands at the ground to where he was going to catch that. I know there's some really talented receivers in the league, and maybe a Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs is a real wide receiver one and like top tier. But you look at all the playoff teams, in the NFL, not just the AFC, but let's go over the AFC first. Patrick Mahomes has Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. The Titans have A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, Derrick Henry. Bills, Stephon Diggs. The Bengals, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins. And then you go to the NFC, Brady has Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, AB not anymore, but Green Bay, Devontae Adams. There's San Francisco has Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. All these top tier teams that are in the finals of this race. The Rams, OBJ, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, he's injured, but all these teams that are in it and in the finals, the final push, the final playoff push, going to the Super Bowl late in the year. All these teams have a true number one receiver. That is one of the things that separates these teams from some of the teams that didn't make the playoffs. There's not many worse wide receiver rosters than the Patriots have. I tried to think about it. Maybe Jets, Jaguars, and Detroit, but there's not many worse wide receiver groups as a whole than what we have. And I think a true number one receiver would help Mac Jones out so much. He had such a great year. Finished 9th with 67.3% completion percentage, 10th in completions, 11th in yards, 11th in big time throws, and 12th in touchdowns as a rookie with average skill positions. I mean, we just didn't have a ton of great talent at that position. And I think what a wide receiver one would do for Mac Jones, I think it would just take his game to a whole nother level. We saw what he did with the great talent at Alabama. If you give him a number one receiver to pair along with some of these slot guys like KB, the tight ends, Jacoby Myers, if he comes back, which I think he will, I think we're going to see a whole different level of offense next year. And I think it's going to open things up a lot.
The only thing that's tough about the Patriots right now is not having number one receivers. Who do you go get? Yeah, obviously both of us. Chris Godwin would be fantastic. Ozzy says it right here also. Oh, sorry. Calvin Ridley. I agree. Calvin Ridley, that would be perfect. But who do you give up for Calvin Ridley? Like that's going to be a big time trade. Do you give up a first round?
N'Keal Harry.
Do you give up N'Keal Harry? I saw someone say that, and I don't know what his value is. You'd have to throw in multiple firsts. And do you like that idea? Because now you're talking, well, do we need to go get a number one corner? Because what are we going to do with JC? Are we going to franchise tag him and then he's going to move on next year? Do we sign him to a contract? And then now pretty much most of our cap space is taken up where you can't go get a Chris Godwin and Allen Robinson, Mike Williams type of guy like that. So it's tough. It's going to be interesting, and free agency will be very telling where they go in the draft. And who was it? The Pats Daily asked who we have our eye on. We got the 21st pick. That's set in stone no matter what. And for me, it depends on where we go in free agency. If you franchise tag JC Jackson, then I would love to see a linebacker taken there. Like you mentioned, Nakobe Dean, Devin Lloyd, if they're there, or you go find a receiver, whether it's Garrett Wilson, Treylon Burks. I'm not a fan. And maybe this is because it's a big Pac-12 receiver. I'm not a fan of Drake London. We've heard this before with N'Keal Harry, and he's coming off an ankle injury.
Who's the Kentucky kid?
The Kentucky receiver?
I was just looking at him today. He's small, fast guy. Anyways, keep going with your point. Yeah, that guy's got a similar build to N'Keal.
Oh, it's Wan'Dale Robinson.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
And he'll be there
I was
later.
Looking at some receivers. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's what route do they go in free agency? If you make a trade for JC or make a trade for Calvin Ridley right off the bat, then maybe JC Jackson's not coming back and they have to go cornerback in the first round. So there's a lot of guys I got my eyes on. Like I would love to be in Philadelphia's shoes where they have 3 first-round picks and they made the playoffs. You can address the linebacker position, whether it's Nakobe Dean or Devin Lloyd. You can go get a receiver, a top receiver, Garrett Wilson, Treylon Burks. If Jamison Williams seems to fall down, Jahan Dotson. And then corners, like we do need depth at corners. If JC moves on, that's a scary position. All of a sudden, you're looking at Jalen Mills being the number 1 corner, and he's not a bad corner, but he's not a number 1 corner type of guy. So yeah, you mentioned it. The Pats Daily, Kiar Elam, you got Ahmad Gardner, you got Trent McDuffie, Andrew Booth. I mean, there's going to be guys there. It just depends on what New England does in free agency, and what route they think they need to go spending their money, and what route they need to get younger at.
And I think the good thing is in the draft, I think at linebacker and wide receiver, I think there's multiple people in both rounds that you could get. So say round 1, Nakobe Dean falls to us at 21, which I don't know how likely that is. He's a stud. That last game he played really well, but if he falls at 21, I think you can grab him. If Jamison Williams falls at 21, you can grab him. So you can grab either one of those guys. And then round 2, you get good options too, where either John Mechie in the second round or Christian Harris at Alabama. That's another guy that you can look at in the second round, which we'll get into these guys more, which I'm excited about. Draft season, that's always exciting. But there's good guys at different positions. So you could go round one. You could say Jameson Williams falls. Then you can get round two. You can go with Christian Harris or vice versa with Mechie and then to Kobe Dean. So I think there's some great options if these guys fall to us. I hope they do. I think there's a few different positions in need. It really does depend how the offseason goes. There's also corner you got to throw in there. Like you said, if JC doesn't come back, my only concern is if we don't get a number one receiver in the draft, I don't think we're getting one at all because there's just too much money wrapped up in skill positions. We have between Aguilar, between Jonnu, Hunter Henry, all these guys, we can't get away from the Jonnu contract. There's too much dead cap. Too much is guaranteed. We can't get away from the Aguilar contract. Really, there's a $10 million cap hit, and I think we'd have like $7 million in cap savings. So that's maybe possible. I'd love to get a guy like Chris Godwin. I think he's a perfect fit. Would you trade a second N'Keal and another player for Calvin Ridley or Godwin? Godwin's a free agent, so that's not going to happen. And second and N'Keal Harry for Calvin Ridley, I don't know if the Falcons would take that. I think they would take this year's first for Calvin Ridley because it's 21 overall. I almost would be concerned if that's too much for a guy with questions about if he's going to play. You know what I mean? He didn't play this year. Is that more related to being on the Falcons? He said it's personal mental health issues. That's something that's awful, and you hope the guy can get through it and can be okay. But it's also a question mark. You know what I mean? If you're a first round pick, you're investing in this guy. You got to be sure that his off the field issues is something that's taken care of and that he's going to be okay to play and be ready to go. But Calvin Ridley's an elite talent. So if you can get him, that'd be huge. Cornerback, there's some corners early in the draft that we could pursue. I think that's going to be a position we might have to get either way, even if we do get JC Jackson. If we re-sign JC, maybe it's not a first round thing, but we're going to have to address the cornerback position at some point as well.
Yeah, and the Pats Daily hit it perfect for me right here. My number one receiver target is John Mechie. It's not Jameson Williams because Jameson Williams is Ohio State. He's an Ohio State transfer. He didn't even play with Mac Jones. So that chemistry, he doesn't have that. Mechie he had 55 receptions, 916 yards, 6 touchdowns with Mac Jones. He averaged 16.7 yards per catch. And then this year before his ACL, he was 1,142 yards, 8 touchdowns. And you got to think in 2020, he's behind the Heisman winner and Devontae Smith. And then he takes over for Jalen Waddle. He only had 4 catches in 2019. So his first full year of work with Mac Jones almost puts up 1,000 yards. For me, his injury could drop him to the second round. And you could see New England trade up for him in the second, maybe with N'Keal and their second round pick and a future pick to move up and get him kind of like what we saw with Barmore. For me, Menchie's my number one guy. And then you would draft the cornerback or linebacker position in round 1 because I think Garrett Wilson's great. I think that obviously Chris Olave would be good. There's good first round receivers. Something just about first round receivers and Bill's draft history just scares the living crap out of me. And I think Mechie in the first would be a reach coming off an ACL. He's not going to do any testing. He's not going to have any numbers. He's kind of going to be a shot in the dark, what his status is for the season. Even he'll be ready, but what's his stamina? What's his conditioning like? Who knows what he does in training camp, OTAs. So for me, he'd be a guy that I'd target in the second round, trading up, kind of like what we saw New England do with Barmore. And that's enticing to me because you said it. Look at Waddle and Tua, Hurts and Smith, Jamar Chase and Burrow. Like these guys that have known chemistry in college come and they love it. They love throwing to them. They're used to it. It's easy for them. So for me, Menchie's my number one guy. And then that way you don't have to spend a first round pick on a receiver and you can go get, a long cornerback and Sauce Gardner, Elam, Trent McDuffie, Andrew Booth, one of those guys, or a linebacker to make you younger and faster. And I agree with you. The route of spending money at the receiver position is scary for me because I feel like you got to spend your money on keeping JC Jackson here, whether it's the franchise tag or extending him. Keep him here for one more year, and then you can develop someone under him if you do draft him, or that gives you another year to plan who his successor is in the depth position there. Because if he leaves, like I said, I don't know if any Patriots fans are comfortable with Jalen Mills as our number one corner or a rookie being thrown into.
None of them should be. None of them should be. And the thing that's scary is Obviously, JC's going to want big money. If we franchise tag him, it's a little over $17 million. I don't mind that idea of franchise tagging him. I think that's probably the route that the Patriots will go. I don't think the end of the season really helped him any. He got exposed a little bit in some scenarios with Stephon Diggs, but he's always struggled with Diggs. Overall, he had a good year. I mean, he was second in the league in interceptions, I think, behind only Trayvon Diggs. But we got a lot of free agents, and we don't have a lot of money. We got like $23 to $27 million projected in cap next year. We have Devin McCourty as a free agent, Trent Brown, Hightower, J.C. Jackson, Ted Karras, Slater, James White, Brandon Bolden, Brandon King, Nick Folk, Jamie Collins, Jakob Johnson, Brian Hoyer. I mean, we got Jawan Bentley, Jacoby, Gunner. We got a lot of free agents. And if we tag JC, that's $17 million guaranteed. And then we're down to what, $5 to $10 million in cap space. There's going to have to be some cap manipulation going on there to open up some space. We're not going to have enough for a true number one receiver unless they do some cap magic like the Rams do and like the Chiefs do and all that stuff. They're gonna have to figure something out because we need to get Mac a true weapon. And I really like the route of going Mechie. I hope he falls round 2 to us. I hope we grab him there. I'm scared that we're not going to pull the trigger, but that is something that I think will. I mean, Dante Scarnecchia said it today. The Patriots need a true number one receiver, a guy that can move the chains, whether it's a true number one like Diggs and all these guys, or whether it's a guy like Welker, Edelman, Amendola, Troy Brown, all those guys who can move the chains. We need a guy like that, and we need another guy that can help out Mac Jones. And I think the chemistry he has with Mechie, that would be great. So if we get him in the second round, I think that's a dream come true. And then hopefully either Gardner or for the cornerback or one of the linebackers, hopefully Nakobe Dean. I don't know. My concern is that all those top guys are going to be gone by our pick. And then we're going to be maybe settling, or maybe we could trade back out of the first round and then go with Mechie and Harris, the linebacker from Alabama, and then get another extra pick somewhere and use it elsewhere. So there's a bunch of different routes that they can go. I'm just worried cap space wise. This team's not in a great place. We had so much money last year. A lot of the guys are kind of question marks on the way they performed at the end of the year, not willing of some of the money that we're giving them. So a lot of it's guaranteed. A lot of these guys are getting their money regardless. So they're going to have to figure out some creative ways to create cap space. Aguilar's probably here. He's here next year. Unless they trade him or cut him, but he's probably here next year for sure. And that's his final year on the deal. He obviously created separation. He did his job. He was a field stretcher, but this team needs somebody who's a true number one receiver that would have caught that ball in the end zone. That's what number one receivers do. They go and make plays. If that's AJ Brown, if that's Stephon Diggs, if that's any top receiver in the NFL, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, whoever, they're catching that ball and it's a touchdown in the playoffs. And that's a huge difference. I mean, that's a big momentum swing. That's the difference between a 7-7 ball game, each team having one drive, or the Bills getting the ball back going down, it's 14 zip and we're in a hole again. You know what I mean? It's a big difference. It seems like a little play, but it's huge. It's really huge. And I think if Matt can have that guy to count on, it's going to open things up more for him. We can open up the scheme a little bit more. The run game's going to be more effective because they're going to have to worry about the pass. They're going to have to worry about covering guys. Teams can't just man up on us and put 10 guys or put 8-9 guys in the box and man up. They're going to have to play some zone. They're going to have to drop some guys back. Whatever they have to do, they're going to have to pay more attention to the passing game. And I think that's going to open things up for our offense and for Mac Jones and take a lot of pressure off his shoulders, because a rookie quarterback with average weapons, that's ugly. That's what you see with Zach Wilson. That's what you see with Trevor Lawrence. And those guys aren't having success. So I think it's kind of impressive that Mac has had the success that he's had. I think it also leans on the run game and that stuff, but he had a lot of success with some average receivers this year. And I think that's one thing that I just really hope we end up addressing, because it seems like it's been years of just the same stuff, trying to find average receivers, and Brady's making them great and making them look good. We got to find a guy who's actually good.
Yeah, New England only has 6 picks in this draft. We're not going to get a comp pick, most likely. I mean, that could change, but from what happened in the offseason,
if Mayo gets hired as a head coach, we get
that's the one thing we would get. Yep.
Yeah.
But we have one in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and then 2 in the 7th. And I mean, I think that Bill has a pretty good history of finding guys in the 7th, 4th round, guys like that can contribute right off the bat. But I wouldn't, rely on New England finding, the next Tom Brady or the next J.C. Jackson every year like that. Like, they happen often in New England, but you can't just be like, oh, we'll find a 7th round guy. Like, They got to figure out what they want to do in the draft and hit on it, whether it's trading that 4th round pick to go up and get someone in the second, like you did Barmore, that can contribute right now. And, if they're sold on Menchie and, Mac Jones is like, do it, like pull the trigger. This guy, he's a workhorse. The work ethic, like he'll fit in this culture. I love him. I have chemistry with him. Like, then maybe that's the route they go. But then they only have 3 more picks after that, in the 3rd and the 7th, and 2 in the 7th. So you got to look at some guys kind of down the line at what they're going to do, because I don't see a lot of that. I see them keeping their 1st and 2nd round pick, and then you got to hit on these guys. So it's not going to be so top heavy at the draft right now. It's going to be, you got to find these guys that are going to be good role players. And that's really what we need. You look at the secondary, when Jonathan Jones went down, you need a guy that can come in and play a good minute or good time after him and can eventually replace him. I love Jonathan Jones, and he was a huge loss this year. But if you have a capable backup, Miles Bryant played great at times, but if he, is a little more prepared and he's ready, maybe he doesn't get torched by Isaiah McKenzie, week 15 or 16, whenever we played at New England, and, sets career highs. So you got to find more depth positions in the back end. And I think that's kind of what Bill did so good last year, is we haven't seen Joshua Bledsoe could be good. Cameron McGrone could be dang good. They could contribute. Raekwon McMillan tore his ACL last year. Like, these guys are coming off injuries, and they could be the answer. Like, we might not have to go and get a 1st round linebacker like we think, because maybe Cameron McGrone is the answer. Maybe McMillan is a guy that can, run well and play physical, kind of like what we saw with Jawan Bentley improving his speed. So maybe we already have the guys in house. It's just not what we're thinking. And coming off an injury is always scary to predict what they're going to be. But they have guys that didn't even play the game this year. Were on IR most of the time and didn't touch the field, and they could be the answer. So I'm interested to see how they go in free agency and the draft, and it'll be really telling about these guys that we heard so much about. We heard a lot about Raekwon McMillan in the training camp, and then once he tore his ACL,
he was having a really good camp.
Yeah, and he tore his ACL, and it's a horrible break for him, but sounds like he'll be back, and hopefully he continues to have that good camp again, and he can come in and replace a Hightower or something. So it'll be interesting. Maybe we have these guys in house, we're just not really thinking of them right now.
I mean, I think that says a lot about McMillan. This is not off topic, but I think he's had multiple ACL tears, and for the Patriots to bring a guy back like that after he just tore his ACL again, I think says a lot about how they feel he did, and maybe that he could have a role on this team. McGrone, I've heard some reporters say that they've heard good things and that the Patriots like what they've seen from McGrone so far. Bledsoe, he got some time in camp and stuff like that. Ronnie Perkins, like Maurice just said, Ronnie Perkins is a guy that we haven't seen much of either. I mean, most rookies have a redshirt year with the Patriots at certain positions, just how it goes. Perkins may be one of them. Also, Anthony Jennings just had an injury season ender this past year as well. So we saw him his rookie year, but maybe he develops more and has more of a role. So there's definitely guys that this team can depend on. And I'm going to get into it more when we touch more on the defense about the linebackers and the route we can go there. But I think there's some guys that could fill certain roles. I still think we're going to end up needing probably a guy in the draft. But the reason the Patriots are in the position they're in right now, where they have some young studs, they have some young talent, but they have holes at certain positions, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is because of the draft. The lack of drafting ability, the lack of success in the draft over the past, I guess, 5 years probably, outside of this past year and maybe the year before that with Duggar and stuff like that. But we're talking about a number 1 receiver. That's what the Patriots need right now, right? N'Keal Harry. If you hit on that 1st round pick, if you get AJ Brown, if you get Deebo Samuel, you get any of those number 1 receivers that were behind him, DK Metcalf, in that draft, that's a whole different discussion. If you hit on Jawan Williams, the 2nd round pick, we have the depth at corner. You know what I mean? If Jawan Williams and N'Keal Harry were good and the Patriots made the right choices drafting, that we would not be in the situation. We'd have a number 1 receiver. We'd have a great cornerback 2. Jalen Mills would be our cornerback 3, along with Jonathan Jones in the slot. We'd be in a much better spot if the drafting was better. So I think you hit the nail on the head. We got to have a good draft. We got to start drafting better. And if we continue to draft like we did this past year, and we get impact players, even if it's just three of our picks, even if 3 of our picks hit, and like they did this past year with Mac, Barmore, and Ramondre, if we get 3 big hits like that again, it's going to be looking good. I know the draft is a crapshoot. I know it's tough, but whatever they did last year, do it again and find some guys, because if we continue to hit in the draft, it's going to set this team up for success long in the future, and that's what we need. We're in this position because of bad drafting. We can get out of it with good drafting. So continue to find these guys, continue to draft well at the positions you need, and this team can be good real quick again. But it is going to take some time. I know year one was what it was. Year two might not be the Super Bowl year either. We might make it a little further than this year. Year 3 and 4, if we continue to draft well and fill some of these holes, we got a lot of veterans that are leaving this year or next year. We're going to have to get some young talent, and they're going to have to develop it some time. They're going to take some time to develop, and I think this team's going to be really good if we can hit on some draft picks this year and next year.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the average age of the Patriots right now. It's 26 and a half years old, the average age. That's 20th in the league. The Buccaneers are the highest at 27. I'm sure Brady kind of fluctuates that average right there at 44. But, I mean, you got to continue to get younger. You look at Mac Jones, you look at these Christian Barmore, like this team needs to get younger. And that's why I like the draft route more. If you go, throw out Colin Cowherd's idiotic thing right there. You go trade for Russell Wilson, 30-plus-year-old. In 3 years, you're just looking to replace this guy. That's what we're trying to get out of. We're trying to get out of having to go out and sign Kyle Van Noy or a Dante Hightower, a guy that's old, that's played good, but he's going to regress eventually. And we're trying to keep these guys on rookie contracts, team-friendly contracts, find them, develop them, make them contribute in our system, and then be able to move on eventually once they demand those high dollars. And that's what the Patriots have been known for. So continuing to drop that average age right there of 26 and a half years old is going to be huge. And that's why I'm, convinced with you, where I love Chris Godwin, but he's already, let's see. Oh, I just pulled it away.
I think he's 26,
26. And what, you sign him for 4 years or 5 years and what, 20 million a year? Maybe 15. I'm not sure. And so he's 30 by the time he's on his contract, and you've locked up all that money. I'd rather just stay in house, re-sign JC Jackson right there, and get younger at that receiver position and pair him with Mac Jones. That's just my philosophy right there. And we know New England's never been big on spending on free agency, although they've always had that receiver, that number one receiver. We've never really seen them go out and spend that big time money. We thought they'd go do it for Allen Robinson or Kenny Galladay this year. They end up going and spending it on tight ends. So we know the philosophy they want to have as with the pass catchers, and I think that they stick to that. I don't think that they go out and reach and overspend for that position.
He's 25.
Yeah,
I think if you can get Chris Godwin, I understand the money aspect, but if you can get Chris Godwin, he's a perfect fit here. I think that'd be a home run signing. This was his 5th year in the league. I know he's coming off an ACL. Maybe that drops his price a little bit, but I agree with the whole getting younger aspect. But this guy, Chris Godwin, you can sign him to a 4 or 5 year deal, and he's still going to be maybe not in his prime, but I mean, Chris Godwin at 30 years old is still probably going to be a pretty damn good receiver. So I wouldn't mind that necessarily. He's still young. I mean, Mac Jones is what, 23? So he's only a couple years older than Mac Jones. Couldn't KB be a number one receiver? Kendrick, as much as I love Kendrick Bourne, as much as Kendrick Bourne had an amazing year, as much as he overplayed at what everybody's expectations were this year, Kendrick Bourne on a good football team is never going to be a number one receiver. He's just not. He shouldn't be on any other roster. Kendrick Bourne would almost not be a number one receiver. Maybe you could argue Jacksonville over Jones. I almost said Maurice Jones-Drew. Marvin Jones, and maybe the Jets. I don't know if you'd take him over Corey Davis. Probably not. Maybe. I don't know. Elijah Moore. KB's not a number one receiver. I love him. I mean, he's one of my favorite players on this football team, but he is a number 2 at most on a good team, probably a number 3 on a very good football team. And I wouldn't mind him being the number 2. I really wouldn't. If I wouldn't mind Aguilar going and getting a top tier number 1 receiver somewhere, whether that's draft or free agency, and that being the trio. I mean, Chris Godwin, KB, and Jacoby Myers. I know Chris Godwin's kind of a slot guy at some points. He plays the slot sometimes, but he can also play on the outside as well and run some deeper routes and create separation and get open. And he's also good at scoring. He's not a touchdown machine necessarily, but he gets his fair share of touchdowns. He's been good in the red zone, and I think Chris Godwin would be a great signing. He's still young. The team does need to get younger, though, overall. The linebacker position, the safety, we're starting to get younger with Duggar and those guys, but McCourty's getting up there in age. The linebackers are all old. Some of the interior defensive line is getting older with Lawrence Guy and some of those guys. But I just think youth is this thing that we need on this team. And that's one thing that is the best is when you have a team, when you hit on your draft picks, that makes you be able to spend money elsewhere. You know what I mean? That's what's great about having Mac Jones on a rookie deal. You're not paying him much money, and he's overperforming for what he's getting paid. Same with Barmore. Same with Ramondre. All these guys. Damian Harris, Jacoby Myers. So if you can continue to hit on draft picks and get younger, all that does is help your team. You can spend money at higher price positions that you can't get as well in the draft. Surefire guys that you need, corners, defensive end, whatever it is, and you can hit on those and add those guys to your team. So getting younger, hitting in the draft is going to be huge. And if we can do it again this year, I think this team's going to be rolling.
Yeah, and Bill always wants to build from the secondary up. He's kind of a guy that wants to have a lockdown corner that can take away the number one guy or at least half the field and then put pieces around him and, build his scheme around there. I like what Skarnecchia said, how we've had a chain mover. Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, like those guys have been great wide receiver ones for New England. Would those guys be wide receiver ones in, normal, like they're not better than Devontae Adams. They're not DeAndre Hopkins. Like they've been great in the system. So I think when people say a wide receiver one, I don't think people are expecting us to go out and sign Devontae Adams. I mean, if we do, great. Like that would be awesome.
Yeah.
But we're talking about a guy that fits in the system, and maybe the number one wide receiver is Jacoby. I don't want to say Jacoby Myers, but it's a Jacoby Myers like type guy because we haven't really been known for pushing the ball down the field. We methodically run the ball, play action passes. We work it in the middle of the field. We're not going to huck up the ball like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. Like we don't want to take deep shots on a consistent basis. We'll take it when it's there. But our definition of a number one wide receiver in the Patriots system is a guy that can run pretty much the whole route tree and get separation. Like that's what we haven't had the last couple of years. N'Keal Harry can't get separation. Nelson Aguilar couldn't really get separation this year. Kendrick Bourne was great at it. Jacoby Myers has been great at it. But consistently, the whole receiver core has not gotten enough separation. And that's what New England's been predicated on the last couple of years is quick, short passes where the guys are open, where the quarterback can step, make the read the coverage, put it accurately on him, and then make guys miss after. And that's my definition of a number one receiver in this system. That's why I think John Mechie, guys like that would be great fits because they really can run the route tree. They're shifty, they're elusive, good, strong hands, catching the ball, chemistry with Mac Jones. Godwin fits that same role. Godwin's not a deep threat like Mike Evans, but heck, he can run pretty much any route over the middle of the field. He's tough as nails, taking hits like Julian Edelman was, and he moves the chains. That's what we've lacked, and that's why I'm excited to go out and see and hope New England gets a wide receiver one and get that for Mac because we've seen multiple quarterbacks take that year two leap once they get that receiver.
And you look at some of these top tier receivers in the NFL, one of the best things that they're good at, not only getting separation, but yards after the catch. That's what separates some of these guys from being a good receiver and a great receiver. Deebo Samuel, I mean, you can use him as a running back. He can run a bunch of different routes. And once he gets the ball in his hand, you never know what can happen. He could take a 3 to 5 yard slant route to the house, 80 yards. I mean, on any given play. And that's what makes these guys special. We don't have somebody like that necessarily. Kendrick Bourne was great after the catch. Jonnu Smith is supposed to be great after the catch, and he was when he got the ball in his hands. But we have too many guys that aren't yak receivers, and Jacoby Myers kind of touched on it in one interview. He said, one of my receivers coach told me one time, if you catch the ball, you've done your job. And I don't think that's good enough in the NFL at the highest levels. I think you catch the ball, that's your job. You should do that. It's what you do after the ball. You catch the ball while maintaining good ball security. Creating yards after the catch is huge. And I think that's something that we haven't seen enough from this Patriots team, these group of receivers. We don't have anybody who's crazy talented enough to make a bunch of guys miss and take it to the house. That's just not, we haven't seen that. You know what I mean? Kendrick Bourne had one big play against the Titans where he kind of made some guys miss on the sideline, but they kind of thought he was out and then he wasn't, and he stiff-armed a guy, and that was a great play. But you gotta find some guys who are great with the ball in their hands, who are threats, and the defense worries about, hey, when this guy gets the ball, we can't just worry about covering him. If he gets the ball out of the backfield, if he gets it on a screen pass, whatever it is, when he gets the ball in his hand, this guy's dangerous, and we got to really watch out for him. It makes the defense play the game a whole lot different. They can't man up our receivers one-on-one and feel comfortable. They can't put all these guys in the box to stop the run. They got to play different styles of defense, or we're going to punish them with our number one receiver, or if they pay attention and double cover our number one, we got KB, we got Jacoby Myers, we got Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, we got these other weapons that can create. And I think a number one receiver changes an offense so much and makes the defense game plan and play you much different. And I think that's just great for a young quarterback, is having a guy you can rely on like that, especially on third down. Even if he's a slot guy, whatever he is, a number one receiver would be huge for this team.
Yeah, look at the yards after the catch leaders in the NFL this year. Cooper Kupp, Triple Crown winner right there. Debo Samuel, you just mentioned it, can do anything on the field pretty much. Jamar Chase, records at the receiver position for rookies. Devontae Adams, we all know him, might be the best receiver in football. Chris Godwin, we've already talked about him enough. Justin Jefferson, like these are top receivers, and they lead the league in yards after the catch. So I agree with you. You, Tanner, said it right here. Like, that's what it is getting the ball in space and making the guy miss. If you go down on first, I was always told in football, like one-on-one with a defender, you make your move. No one should be taking you down one-on-one if you get to make your move. So I agree. You got to have a shifty guy there. And I think that we have guys that can do it sparingly, but not consistently enough to be that explosive offense we want to be. And, we're Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris. If you look at their numbers, they did a great job having yards after contact in the running game. But we need that in the passing game also. James White was a master at that. James White rarely goes down on the first guy, and that was a huge loss this year. Ramondre did a good job replacing him. But you look at these receivers, they catch the ball in open space. I mean, against the Chiefs, Jamar Chase, two of his touchdowns literally just looked like they threw the ball to him, and he just kind of like ran in circles and then, uses his speed and gets up the field. Like, in a way, it's backyard football where you're better than the other guy at some point. You
just look at that one game from Jamar, and he probably had more yards after the catch than our entire receiving core combined for like half the season. That's a little exaggerating a little bit, but you know what I mean? That's one thing that you just talked about is backyard football. You have more talent than the other guy. You're going to beat him. You're going to make him miss. You're going to make him move, whatever you got to do. And you're going to beat the guy. We don't have a guy who you look at and say, that guy's more talented than anybody. That guy's the most talented football player on the field. We don't have somebody like that at the wide receiver position. And we really haven't in quite some time since Randy Moss, whatever. I mean, Edelman is good, but a lot of the guys that are predicated off the Patriots system have never been the most talented player on the field. They run precise routes. It's the system. If they run their route correctly, Belichick and McDaniels believe the system is going to get them open. And that's not always how it works. If your receivers aren't talented enough and the defenders are good and they know how to play your scheme, you're going to have to beat man coverage sometimes. And that can't always happen if you don't have a talented receiver who can beat somebody one-on-one. That's what we need. We need a guy with talent. We need a talented receiver. And we just don't have that enough. It's tough. I think it would really help Mac Jones out a lot. You just listed off a great list of receivers. Those are probably the top 5, top 10 receivers in the NFL, and all of them lead those categories. So I think that speaks for itself a little bit, that stat right there. Yards after the catch. It's huge. What a receiver can do once he gets the ball in his hands is half the battle right there. I mean, getting open is the other half of the battle, but once you catch that football, it's your time to shine and see what you can do with it.
Yeah, and Maurice right here asks, what about our QB pressure? I think Judon is enough. I agree. I think Judon's very disappointing the last 5 games of the year. No sacks recorded. Kind of just fell off the face of the earth, really. And COVID, I mean, I don't know if that's an excuse, but he seemed ever since then, didn't have quite the energy and didn't seem quite into it. So I agree. I think, and I want to see Uche. We've raved about Josh Uche. We talked about him in training camp. I want to see him make a jump. We'll see what Ronnie Perkins is made of. Christian Barmore from the interior, he's only going to get better. He won on 17% of his pass rush snaps. That's 5th best in the NFL for defensive linemen. That's behind Aaron Donald, Jonathan Allen, Chris Jones, and Javon Hargrave. Like, this is his
I got
first
a Barmore
year.
stat. I got a Barmore stat
go
from
ahead.
Highest pass rushing win percentage in the wild card round of the playoffs. Number 1, Patriots defensive tackle Christian Barmore, 33%. Behind him, Cardinals outside linebacker Marcus Golden, 30%. Then behind him, Rams defensive tackle Aaron Donald, 29.6%. Then Max Crosby, Micah Parsons at 27%. So, kid's special. The kid's going to be good.
Yeah, and doing that from the interior defensive line, he's 9th in the whole NFL in pressures, in total pressures on the air, and he only recorded 2 sacks. Like, I can think of at least 3 or 4 where he had them in his hands and they slip out, or so close. And you get that sack number from an interior defensive lineman up to 5, 6. Like, Aaron Donald this year had 16. You look at some of the top guys right here. Donald 16, which he's obviously a freak. If we could get anywhere near Aaron Donald out of Christian Barmore, that would be massive. But Jeffrey Simmons had 11, Cameron Hayward 11. Like if you can get Barmore up around 8, that's massive. That is massive for the pressure stats. Judon's going to get better. I mean, I don't see Judon. I expect him to have around 12 sacks a year. If he does more, that would be great. And I think that we get him some help, whether it's Uche, he continues to develop, Ronnie Perkins, or we find another guy. I think that defensive ends, sadly, it's always a good position to have to put pressure on the quarterback. But with the needs of this team, the defensive end is probably going to be something they address in the 4th, maybe with one of their 7th round picks. And that's just one of the positions that gets the short end of the stick this offseason. And maybe we don't see much turnaround. We see a lot of guys come back and just kind of the same group, minus the guys that were hurt and didn't play a lot this year. So, yeah, it would be nice. We just don't have the luxury of doing that this year. We went out, we spent money on Judon, we got him. I don't see us going out and spending that again with the cornerback or receiver needs. And you're not going to spend a top pick on one, in my opinion, unless you just have a generational talent fall to you at 21, which I don't see anyone in there outside of Thibodeau and Aiden Hutchinson that would make that difference.
They're going 1-2 probably.
I mean, yeah.
So a couple things on Judon. I've heard 2 different stories. One from Mike Giardi said that Judon's rib injury that he suffered in that first Bills game was more serious than people realized. And he talked about it a little bit in a press conference, but he kind of shook it off and said, yeah, well, it's the NFL. Everybody's hurting right now, whatever. So according to Giardi, that was more serious and that plagued him more than people thought. That was one thing. Another thing, Greg Bedard just said that there was possibly a personal issue, and he didn't get into it too much. I haven't finished watching it. But also that Judon, the last month of the season, was just not locked in. He didn't have the same energy, didn't have the same focus, this, and this. And he compared it to Malcolm Butler's kind of tenured here when he struggled to have focus and stuff and ended up getting benched in the Super Bowl and then was traded, whatever, all that stuff. So I hope that's not how it works out. If that is, that's terrifying because we committed a ton of money to him. I hope it was just the injury. I really do, because if it was just the injury, that means when he's healthy, he's going to be a beast again. And I'm kind of going to dive into this a little bit here. This touches on kind of everything we've talked about so far, along with some things planning for the future. This team, like we talked about, Hightower was great throughout the year. Van Noy is supposed to be here next year. He's under contract. I think Hightower needs to go. He missed so many tackles, and I know it's late in the year. Maybe it's because he's getting older, whatever it is. Unless he's here on a much cheaper deal than he was this year, I don't think he's at the level of play where he can continue to be a priority in this defense. This team needs to figure out what it wants to do for the future. If this team wants to continue to play man coverage, I don't think it's a terrible thing to keep some of these bigger linebackers like Bentley and Hightower, because when you're playing man coverage, heavy man coverage, your corners can do all the work, and the linebackers don't have to be as fast and drop into different zones. They still need to be able to do it once in a while to switch things up, but they don't need to do it as often, and they can kind of pin their ears back, rush the passer, commit to the run sometimes, do what they do in man coverage. And that's one thing. If you're going to play zone coverage, those guys need to be gone, because you're going to have to get a lot faster at the linebacker position. You're going to have to play guys like McGrone. You're going to have to get guys like Harris in the draft, whatever, guys who can play zone coverage and be sideline to sideline guys. That's a lot more important. So I think it really depends how they want to play this year. Not this year, how they want to play in the future. It depends what JC does, how they address this cornerback position. But I think we're gonna figure that out based off their offseason moves. If they re-sign these guys, I think that maybe shows, hey, we want to continue to play man coverage. And I really think that's what they want to do. I think the biggest thing that hurt this team this year was what did we talk about the entire preseason, the entire early season, whatever. This team does not have enough cornerback depth. That's what we stressed all year. Jonathan Jones gets injured week 5, week 6, whatever it is. I think week 5 against the Cowboys. He's done for the year. Okay, so that's one of our best corners, our slot corner. He's gone. Then Jalen Mills right after that, they had to start playing zone coverage because they couldn't man up with Miles Bryant and some of the other guys that we had. They just couldn't play man and feel comfortable about it. So these linebackers, especially when Jalen Mills went out for COVID and we played the Bills, these linebackers got exposed because they're not a zone scheme system linebacker. That's like more the Bills linebackers. They're more zone guys. They're more sideline to sideline. That's not what these guys are. So I think the Patriots got exposed so much because they were playing out of scheme, out of what this team was built to play, because of some of their injuries and their lack of depth and their lack of players to fill those roles. So I think that's one of the reasons that we saw such an embarrassing performance. And later in the year, teams started to expose our linebackers. They said, hey, these guys are way too slow. They're not meant to be zone coverage linebackers. They're meant to be in a man coverage system. And the Patriots are playing heavy zone this year because of their injuries, because their lack of talent and depth. So this is what the Patriots had to do. I think if we were healthy the entire year, we're playing man coverage, and I think this defense looks a lot different because I think those guys aren't being put in those mismatched situations like they were late in the year, and especially that last game when we got exposed.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the linebacker position. Like Micah Parsons, he's a do-it-all. I mean, the top linebackers in the league, they do it all. They cover sideline to sideline. They can rush a passer. They can cover. They
Fred
can
Warner.
Cover running back. Yeah, Fred Warner. Like they can do it all, and that's why the top linebackers at the position. I think Devin Lloyd, if he falls at 21, he's a no-brainer for me. Long, lengthy, 6'3", 235. He's longer than Nakobe Dean. He graded 11th best linebacker this year. Nakobe Dean obviously was the number 1 rated linebacker, but he has the 3rd highest grade, or one of the 3rd. I'd have to pull up the exact numbers. It's a top 5 grade in coverage and pass rush. So he's been doing it all this year, and I love him not only because he's from
Utah. That's why.
Yeah,
that's
because he's
the only reason. That's the only reason you want him.
I'm actually a BYU fan, so it pains me to love this guy so much. But I've watched him. We played him this year, first game of the year, and they destroyed us because we're FCS. But like watching him run around the field and what he did against Oregon with the pick 6. I don't want to compare him to Micah Parsons because no one's going to come in and do what Micah Parsons does. But if there's a Micah Parsons in this draft class, it's going to be Devin Lloyd with his length, his athleticism, the way he plays the game in all facets. He's a guy for me that's a no-brainer if they're there at 21 because I don't see many guys coming out of the draft. And if this guy is in an SEC program, if he's at Alabama, he's a surefire top 10 pick. I think that the Pac-12, he's a junior. He's a little bit up there in age. He's I think he's 23 because he's been at the University of Utah for 4 years now. So there's a lot of things contributing to him maybe being available there at 21. But if this guy's if he plays in the college football playoffs every year, like Alabama's players do or Georgia's guy, this guy's a top 10 pick for sure. So he's a guy that I have my eye on. I look at the teams in front of us. Miami needs help at linebacker. Philadelphia has 3 picks in front of us, and they need a lot of help on that defense. I mean, both a corner and a linebacker coming off the board with one of those Eagles picks scares me. And, there'll probably be guys that we'd love to have. So there's a lot of teams in front of us too that have needs that we need and could address. So it'll be interesting to see how it falls. But that's a guy for me that you're just talking about the linebacker position alone, getting younger and faster and a little bit more versatile there, that you can do a lot of things scheme wise and change up looks and, do a lot of things with him. He's a guy that jumps off this draft class for me.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to get a guy like that. That's something that this team could really use. And I think even if we want to keep playing man coverage, I think it would not hurt at all to get younger and get some guys who are physical and speedier. And I was listening to a podcast the other day who talked about it. There's not a lot of guys like Dante Hightower and Jawan Bentley left in the college system. A lot of these colleges want faster linebackers to play at the speed with the RPOs and all this different stuff and zone coverage, be versatile. That's what these linebackers are. So you can't continue to just have a big thumping linebacker system and then go look in the draft and say, oh my God, I mean, there's nothing here. You're going to have to eventually adapt to the NFL. And what's great about some of these linebackers is Fred Warner. He's sideline to sideline. He's a physical dude. He plays bigger than his size. Like, he's not as heavy as maybe a guy like Hightower or Bentley or whatever. He's a lot faster and he plays just as physical and like he's 30 pounds heavier than he is. He plays bigger than he is. And that's what some of the most talented linebackers are. They are strong enough and fast enough to have enough power to play bigger than their size, but also have the speed to be sideline to sideline and cover guys and do all this. So I think if we could find a guy like that, that would be great to have that a middle linebacker like that set in our system, young, and a young core of this defense would be huge. I mean, we can't keep playing guys like Kyle Duggar and Adrian Phillips in the box forever. They're too small. They're fast. They can keep up. But you want to be able to have those guys play in the secondary, cover tight ends, blitz off the edge, whatever they need to do, contain Lamar Jackson, be a QB spy. There's other roles for these guys. So if you can get a linebacker that can play in zone coverage, blitz, do all that different stuff, I think that'd be a huge addition to this defense, regardless of if they want to keep playing man or if they want to switch it up to zone, which I don't think they'll do.
Yeah, and Marie, sorry, I saw this comment. I was going to get to it before I started talking about the linebackers, but what role does Winovich what role Winovich will fit in? I think that's the biggest question mark. He had 7 sacks as a rookie year and then 6 sacks last year. And then obviously he only played weeks 1 through 5 and then 11, 12, 17, and 18. So he only played 9 games this year. No sacks, 3 hurries on the year. Like, this is going to be his last year of his rookie deal. I hope that he has a little bit more of a resurgence and he can help, because he was very promising year 1 and 2. And then he hasn't been as promising, obviously, this year. A little bit of a disappointment, but he's never going to be a top pass rusher in the league. He's not going to be a Matt Judon for us, but he's a good complementary piece that can come in on third downs and get a sack here and there. And that's what we need. Is we have our star in Matt Judon. Hopefully things continue to work out with him. And that's why you get Matt Judon, and then you build around him with Chase Winovich, Ronnie Perkins, Josh Uche, guys like that can win one-on-one, because when you got Matt Judon on the field and Chase Winovich, the attention's going to go to Judon. They're not going to pay attention to Winovich. So you get guys like him, hopefully, that can get better, get healthier and stay healthy, and put up those stats where they're winning their one-on-ones, and that helps the pass rush. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I feel like he's almost out of New England right here, and hopefully we can get one more good year out of him. But it's guys like that are going to have to step up and play bigger roles in the pass rush game, because it was bad the last 5 games.
It's going to be interesting to see how the, I guess, trio of Uche, Winovich, and Perkins kind of develops, because I was really excited about Uche. It seems like Uche and Winovich are not system players. They aren't good enough at setting the edge to be consistent 3-down players. These guys are third down pass rushers, pin your ear back, only those situations. That's why they're playing so limited, is because all Uche can do, and he's great at it, is pin his ears back and go chase after the guy with the football. That's what he does. He chases after the quarterback. They haven't been sound enough in setting the edge and doing different things in the run game to create a big role in this football team. And I think that's one thing that they struggle with those draft picks, the 2nd and 3rd round pick with Uche and Winovich. They're exciting players. They're talented guys, but I think they'd have more success in a different system where they don't care as much about setting the edge, and they say, "Hey, go get the quarterback. That's it." I think that's when those guys would have more success. So I could see a guy like Winovich or Uche maybe being traded if they like what Perkins brings to the table, because there's only so many spots for edge rushers and depth there. We got a bunch of them. We got, obviously Dietrich Wise, Judon, and those 2 young guys there. So we got plenty of talent there. It's just those guys maybe don't fit this system as well as they thought they would coming out of the draft. And maybe that's something that Perkins can do and step in. But I don't see much of a role for either one of those guys unless they improve their ability to set the edge, and unless we see more situations where they can be a 3rd-round pass rusher and just pin their ears back between Van Noy, Judon, Wise, and those 2 guys. I don't see a huge role for them if Ronnie Perkins ends up being something.
And that's the thing is, there you look at Cameron McGrone, you look at Ronnie Perkins, Josh Uche. These guys, we knew when New England drafted them that they were project type of guys. We knew that they have all the potential in the world and they're good at certain things, but they're not a complete player. And that's what's kind of scary is Bill's known for taking those guys and he hits on some of them and then he misses on some of them. And the misses seem to hurt a lot more than the hits, because usually when you hit on a guy like this, they're a good role player. And then the misses, you stand out and you have, a promising 1st, 2nd year, and then Winovich is almost unplayable in certain downs because of what he brings to the table. And seems like it's getting that way with Uche. So you have these guys that Bill Belichick's known for getting, JC Jackson, guys like this that have all the potential in the world that come in and dominate, and they're great. But on the flip end, there's also guys that we've taken that have not panned out like we have. And, a 3rd-round pick on Chase Winovich, he was 77th overall. It's not a premium pick, but that's a big time pick. Like, there's been a lot of good players that have come out of the 3rd round that you could have gotten that maybe were a little bit more established coming out of college. And they didn't like their potential, but you at least knew what you were getting out of them, and it might have been the safer pick. So you take a chance. That's what New England's kind of known for. Take a chance and you try to build something out of them. And at this point, I guess that maybe in the 4th and 7th rounds or whatever, you can maybe do that. But New England's got to make sure, like we said, that they hit on these, big time picks, especially the 1st, 2nd, 3rd overalls that are going to come in and contribute at least a little bit and be able to develop into something. Yeah,
it seems like, 3rd-round picks are not always huge, like, successes, I guess you'd say. They're in the 3rd round and not the 1st round for a reason. But I think we need to get more consistent production out of the first 3 rounds that we draft. We haven't seen that enough in recent years. We've had a lot of guys that haven't contributed damn near at all. We obviously talked about a little bit earlier with Nikhil and Jawan Williams. Those guys, a first and second round pick. Isaiah Wynn, first round pick. Sony Michel, first round pick. Both Sony Michel's gone. Isaiah Wynn, I wish was gone, but he's on the books for $10 million next year, which stinks because if we didn't pick up that 5th-year option, Isaiah Wynn would be gone this year, or he'd be coming back for a cheap deal because he played like dog shit all year. And we could re-sign Trent Brown instead, and probably for less money than the $10 million. I mean, that's what he played on this year. I think he'd probably take even a little bit less than that this coming year because he wants to be back. And that'd be a lot better position than having Isaiah Wynn. We could have Trent Brown re-signed for the same price as Isaiah Wynn, and he could be our left tackle on when it could be a right tackle, and would be golden. And I think that'd be a great lineup to set in stone coming into the season. Maybe re-sign Ted Karras. He did great this year. And then you got, obviously, Shaq Mason and David Andrews. Those 2 guys are studs. But Isaiah Wynn, there's been too many misses in the first, second, and third rounds. I understand misses late in the draft, but it's almost like they've hit later in the draft better than they have in early rounds sometimes, which is just unheard of, and it's crazy. But past couple drafts, we've had some good talent, good young talent come out of it. But so many teams, you look at, oh my God, this team is stacked. They have great players. How do they have so much cap space? Oh, well, they have a ton of young talent, and they hit on their draft picks. That's just how it is. I mean, the Dolphins had a great draft this year too. Jalen Waddle, Javon Holland, Jalen Phillips. They got a bunch of young talent, and they hit on all 3 of those picks, I'd say. So we got to consistently hit on more picks, or this team is going to keep getting older and older and less talented, and we're not going to be able to spend as much money as other teams because we have to pay all these veteran guys, and that's not what you want. You want to have a good young core that you can build up and have them all get used to this system and all improve together. And I think that's what makes some of these teams like the Bills and these guys, they've been together for a while. They drafted well, and now they're all growing up in the system together. Now years 3, 4, 5, they're all meshing together well, have experience together, and they're hitting on all cylinders. And you can kind of see that with some of these teams.
I'm looking back at the 2019 draft right now, realizing how this is when Winovich was taken. Obviously, N'Keal Harry, I liked him coming out of college. I'm not going to bash on him. Hindsight's always 2020. But you look at Deebo Samuel, AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, they were taken after him. Move into the second. Do you know who we took in the second round that year? Do you remember?
Which year was this? 2019?
2019.
That wasn't Jawan, was it? That was.
It was.
Oh, it was Jawan?
Okay. Jawan Williams. Like, you got Greedy Williams that was taken after him, who I loved coming out of LSU, coming out of a big-time program. You had... Then you go to the third round, you have Chase Winovich, who was taken there. Sione Taki. Right? Yeah, Damian Harris was there. That was a great draft pick.
That was the only hit. That was the 4th round, right?
It really was. And he was in the 3rd still. He was 87th.
Oh, he was still
overall.
3rd? Okay.
Yeah. But you took Chase Winovich, 77th. You have Sione Taki, who's been great. Scroll down a little bit more in the 3rd round. Bobby Okereke. He was like top 5 in tackles this year for Indianapolis. You scroll down, we took Yodny Kajus there in the 3rd round also. You keep scrolling down. Max Crosby was taken in the 4th round. A couple other, big guys. I don't want to, scroll down and board one, but there's definitely been some misses in this draft. And I mean, Max Crosby, I don't think a lot of guys saw his rise to success coming like that. And I said it, I was high on N'Keal Harry, and a lot of people were, but he didn't pan out. And you have guys like, this is what blows my mind about the N'Keal Harry thing. Deebo Samuel and AJ Brown wanted to be here. They wanted to be Patriots.
Bad too. Both of them
bad. I had never seen a Deebo video until yesterday or whenever it was posted about him saying, "Hey, Bill, I'll see you in a month." I knew about AJ Brown in a Patriots jersey.
And then he was on TV.
They wanted to be Patriots bad. Like, they wanted to be here. I don't know how you don't take a guy like that, man. I don't know if they just really hated their film or they really thought N'Keal was that good. But then that comes back to the evaluation team and, the scouts and whoever else is making that decision there is like, if that's our decision right there, I mean, there's going to be misses in drafts. I'm not blaming that because we've had good successes too. We've also had bad stories with draft picks. So I'm not blaming the whole thing, but if that's what we are evaluating talent with, like, then maybe we're calling out the scouting team and the GMs and stuff and saying, like, we got to be better at that because there's so many misses like that, like you said, and you got to get better at those because that's how you build Super Bowl teams when they're on team friendly contracts on their rookie deal and they're not playing for $10 million a year.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Tom Brady covers up for a lot of bad draft picks. You can make a lot of mistakes. You can make a lot of poor management decisions when you have Tom Brady as your quarterback. We don't have Tom Brady anymore. We have a rookie quarterback who's never going to be Tom Brady. He's shown some really great, encouraging signs. And I think he's going to be a great young quarterback. I think he's got a bright future with his team. Everybody loves him too. I mean, David Andrews just reposted Mac's post and said, "My quarterback," and everybody loves Mac. I mean, you see all the comments on his post. The entire team loves him. They all want to play for him. That's great to see. A young leader. You saw the moment with Hunter Henry and him on the sideline. You saw Mac going up to every single offensive player, even the backup offensive lineman after the game the other day on the sideline. You love seeing all the qualities that Mac has, but there's never going to be another Tom Brady here. You know what I mean? That's just not realistic to have those expectations on this kid. He's going to be good. I think he could be a top 8 quarterback for quite some time. I really do. And in order for that to happen, you can't have poor management decisions all the time and screw this kid over. You got to hit on draft picks, whether it's defensive or offensive. You got to hit on these picks. And that's one huge thing. It's going to be interesting to see without Ernie Adams. Nick Caserio just went to Houston last year. We might be losing Ivan Fears isn't really part of the draft process, but our executive just had an interview. Elliot Wolf.
No, there's one other Zilger. Dave Ziegler too. Dave Ziegler.
Yeah. So there's a few different Patriots in the front office that are getting looked at for head coaching jobs and different stuff like that. So he can't make up for mistakes forever. Belichick and this whole front office needs to kind of get their stuff together and continue to hit on drafts like they did last year. I like this comment from Tanner. That's what stood out to me the most during the blowout was the unwavering leadership from Mac was on display. I agree. That's one thing you love to see from Mac is that not only did it feel like he never got rattled, that ball he threw to Aguilar was a great throw. Yes, if you want to get really, really, really nitpicky, you could say, oh, maybe he puts it a little further to the left so the safety can't reach it. Maybe he puts it 1 foot further so that the safety can't pick it off. It's either Aguilar's ball or nobody. But that was a beautiful throw. Aguilar was open. I don't think I think Mac would tell you it could have been a better throw because that's the type of guy Mac is. That's the type of player he is. He wants to be perfect. And that's what I love about the kid. One thing that impressed me also, not only the leadership, but his scrambling ability, his ability to create plays, something out of nothing. When he got pressured, he had that 30-yard ball to Hunter Henry on 3rd down. Then he scrambled for 12 yards to get the first down on 3rd down. Then he had another nice throw to Brandon Bolden where I think he escaped the pocket. Brandon Bolden dropped it. Would have been like a 25, 30-yard completion, but he dropped it. But Mac Jones' leadership is one of the most important things and one of the biggest things that I think is huge to this team. And he talked about it in his post-game press conference. He said, one thing I want to improve on next season is my leadership ability. He said, and he called not players out, but he kind of called the team out sometimes in interviews and said, hey, we didn't have a good week of practice, this, and this. And players talked about how if the play was bad, Trent Brown said, hey, if we don't run a play perfect in practice, Mac Jones says, hey, no, we're running that again. He doesn't wait for the coaches to do it, and we run it again. Like Mac said, I think next year I need to work on being a better leader, voicing myself more and being a bigger part of this team. I think he felt as a rookie, he couldn't really do that. And I think that's one thing that stands out about Brady. I hate to keep comparing the two, but when Brady took a step, you saw him on the sideline. You saw him 28-3. He's yelling at everybody when they're down. He's yelling at everybody. He's holding people accountable, saying, hey, we got to get going. We got to pick things up, whatever. He uses a lot more swear words than that, but I think that's one thing that Mac can work on for this upcoming season. We saw him quietly do it sometimes, but I think he was also hesitant because he's a rookie. I think that would be a huge jump next year in these times where we're starting out slow. If Mac Jones says, hey, we need to get things going. We need to get things rolling, step it up. We're playing with low energy, whatever. And if he picks them up and they play at the level he was playing at, I think this team's going to be great because him and KB were the only ones who showed up this weekend. That's it. Mac Jones and Kendrick Bourne were the only 2 players who showed up, had fight, showed energy, and played well. So it was like the whole team was playing with bricks tied to their ankles, and Mac and KB were kind of trying to do their thing and hold this team afloat. So I think his leadership ability is one thing that's really exciting. And I think that's going to continue to progress as he gets more comfortable being a leader. And I think his second year in the system, second year with the team, I think he's going to be more comfortable leading these guys and holding people accountable and keeping these players playing up to the level he's playing at. Sometimes he'll be down, but when he's up, when players are down and the team's doing bad. I think next year that's going to be one thing that is going to take his game to a whole nother level.
Yeah, and if all of a sudden McCourty retires and Dante Hightower's out and Slater's gone, like that's 3 of your longest tenured Patriots. 2 of them, some of the best leaders the Patriots organization has seen in McCourty and Slater. So you're going to need new young voices in there that step up, take those leadership roles. And I love Mac. I mean, I think that he's built for it. I've said this ever since he was drafted. He might not have the intangibles where he has the huge rocket arm. He might not be able to scramble for 80 yards a game like Josh Allen and stuff, but what stood out to me coming out of college for him is he throws it accurately. He plays a quarterback position, but he's stuck at Alabama. This might seem so simple. He was behind Jalen Hurts and Tua, for hell's sakes, and he doesn't transfer. You know how many guys look at Quinn Ewers?
Rattler.
He's a guy. Yeah. Rattler's transferring. Quinn Ewers. Like, there's guys that get their job taken away, and a week later, their names are in the transfer portal. Mac Jones sat behind these guys for 4 years, and then comes in, starts, sets a record at 77% completion percentage, and leads into a national championship. Just incredible. Like, there's something about someone's character that does it that way. He doesn't want it easy. Like, obviously, if it comes easy, it comes easy, and you take it. But he's used to working through things. Like, he sat there. He was in a QB battle. He waited his turn, and he's taken full advantage of it. I love that about him. It might be so simple. People are going to look past that and be like, oh, well, he wasn't good enough to start as a freshman at the University of Alabama. Well, he might have been the best quarterback Alabama's had statistically in the last 20 years, setting records left and right for completion percentage and everything. So you can say that all you want, but it says a lot about a quarterback that sits under 2 other guys. He gets to learn from them. He gets to practice with them. He gets to study with them. I guarantee you he took a lot, just how Mac Jones is too. He's always working. He's always improving to get better in the playbook on the field. I guarantee you he took a lot of that knowledge, and he might not have been as athletic as Jalen Hurts or Tua, but he took a lot of that knowledge that he learned and he applies it to how he plays the game in his own way. He doesn't play it like them, but he uses it to translate to his game. And I think that says a lot. I was very impressed with that. It's so typical nowadays. Any position, not just a quarterback position, anyone jumps in the transfer portal. Oh, I'm a 5-star or 4-star, and I went to Alabama, but Texas wanted me just as bad. I'll just go down there and play. Like that's the easy way out. You don't have to earn it that way. So exactly. I love that about him, and I'm excited to see his leadership grow too.
I think everything we've seen about this kid's character is spot on. I think that's why he's so easy to like and so easy to say, hey, this kid's going to be good, is because he's got the right mentality. He's got the right leadership qualities. He's got the right fight. He's not afraid to work. He's not afraid of hard work. The kid's willing to do whatever it takes to win football games and improve his game. He wants to play perfect. That's what the freaks do. The quarterbacks who are extremely good, the players who are extremely good, Kobe Bryant, all the stuff he did all the hours he put in over everybody else. That's what makes these guys so special. That's what makes the special players special, is they're not afraid to put in the work, and they're going to put in more hours. They're going to work harder than anybody else. And I think that's a lot of the qualities this kid has. And that's good to see at such a young age. I think he's been really impressive so far. And I'm excited to see how he continues to develop as a leader mentally, his routine, all that different stuff. It's going to be exciting. And one thing that I'm really interested to see, he doesn't have the best arm. Some people have commented and said that's one of his downfalls. Oh, can he throw a deep ball on a straight line? He can throw a deep ball with touch. I don't think that's a question. I mean, he's put so many deep balls on the money this year. They've either been dropped, some of them have been caught, but he has extreme accuracy. His ability to zip the football, we haven't seen him really throw a lot of lasers this year, but I think he hasn't had to in certain scenarios, and he throws a lot of balls with touch. But one thing that I saw, Joe Burrow from last year to this year, I mean, when he came into the season this year, he looked jacked. I mean, he looked way bigger than he did his rookie season. I think that's probably from recovering from his ACL and his knee injury and all that stuff and being in the training room a lot. But I think that's one thing that Joe Burrow and Mac Jones, Joe Burrow's a little more athletic than Mac, and his body's built a little bit different. But I think Mac Jones could take not as aggressive as a leap as Joe Burrow maybe, but I think Mac Jones could take a similar leap if he kind of works on some of the things Burrow did with his arm strength and stuff like that, and he continues to do all the mental stuff right. If he works on his arm strength, I think he could have and they get him a number 1 receiver, I think he could have a Joe Burrow type leap where he kind of has a coming out party a little bit next year. Not going to be as good as Joe Burrow. I'm not saying that. He was the number 1 pick. The kid's a stud. But I think he has a lot of the same qualities maybe that Burrow has. And I think mobility is pretty similar. I'm pretty sure they had a very similar amount of rushing attempts and yards. I think Mac actually had more yards per attempt rushing in college than Burrow. I think that was a stat I heard from Phil Perry today. So I think that's one thing that's going to be interesting. I'm excited to see what he works on this season. He has a full off season. Last year, he was training for the combine. He had to put a lot of time into that, into the draft, into learning systems for interviews with NFL scouts and stuff. He's got full time with his players, with the coaches, whatever he wants to train with this offseason. The Patriots are going to say, hey, this is what you need to improve on, put a regimen together for him to get better. And that's what he's going to do. So I'm really excited to see how maybe his body transforms a little bit if they end up wanting to improve his arm strength and stuff like that. And just what he works on this season to improve his game and take it to the next level next year.
Yeah, and I get it. He doesn't have the strongest arm. Like we all know. He doesn't have a Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes type arm. But he can throw the deep ball. Last year, this is what I'm getting to. Give him a wide receiver 1. He will be great at throwing the deep ball. Last year at Alabama, second highest completion percentage on passes past 20 yards, only behind Zach Wilson. That was at 59%. He had the most touchdowns on passes past 20 yards, 17 touchdowns. The most yards past 20, targeting receivers past 20 yards, almost 1,400. Yeah, right there. He was averaging the most yards per attempt also on passes past 24 yards. So it wasn't just right at 20. It was 24.2 yards. Like he's still keeping up his big time throw percentage. This is all just on passes past 20 yards. 43% big time throw percentage. That led the league. I mean, he can throw the ball. Give him a true wide receiver 1. He can throw the ball. And I think that's what we were lacking this year. Obviously, we've talked about it, but we didn't have a deep threat. Nelson Aguilar was great, but there was no one else that could take the top off the defense. And so he was taking the 10, 15-yard passes or the shorter ones, and that's not throwing the deep ball, in the NFL terms. So give him a receiver 1. He can throw the ball. He's done it at Alabama. He will do it again in New England. I promise you he will. And he might not do it at that rate, but if you give him a receiver 1, when New England wants to push the ball down the field, he will be able to push the ball down the field. I have no worry about that.
I don't know. I don't know if this is not breaking news, but ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported the market would be robust for Calvin Ridley, with the Patriots Dolphins listed as potential landing spots. So I don't know how, maybe that's just him guessing of who would be interested, but that'd be cool. I mean, that'd be cool to have a guy like Calvin Ridley. The only thing that concerns me is obviously, is he going to play? And he also, I think, is owed a contract. Not if he could play this year, but the year after, we'll have him for 1 year, and then we'll need to give him a big contract. And I don't know if the Patriots would be willing to trade high capital for a guy that has question marks, and you need to pay him the next year. So that'll be interesting to see. We'll see how that works out. I'm sure we'll have plenty of talks about it. We both agree on the wide receiver 1 conversation. I think that would do a lot for this team in general. And if you can get younger at the linebacker position and get some of those guys in the draft, get a corner, get a linebacker, get a good receiver, and try to keep JC and get this cornerback group. If we can keep them healthy and have more depth, I think this defense is going to be a lot more consistent than it was this year. And I think they'll be able to play man coverage and go back to their roots of what this team wants to be, because they don't want to be a zone coverage team. Ever since they have had a dominant cornerback that can play man coverage and shut down a number 1 receiver, they played man coverage, and their defense has been elite a lot of the time. So that's a lot that this team kind of needs to do. They don't have a ton of cap space, but if they draft well, I think this team could look a lot different next year in a good way.
Yeah, and you want to talk about getting Calvin Ridley, I'm all for it, depending on what they have to give up. And like you mentioned, there's obviously precautions to get him, and it doesn't sound all so bright and gloomy as it would be. But you talk about a dude that is a deep threat. Calvin Ridley, second most this is last year, because obviously he didn't play a lot this year. Second most targets past 20 yards, only behind Tyreek Hill. Most receptions past 20 yards. He had 16 receptions on 36 targets. That's the highest reception percentage. Oh, sorry. That's second highest behind Justin Jefferson. He had the most yards, and he had 2 touchdowns. That's Tyreek Hill had 8 touchdowns on balls past 20 yards. So that's a little bit down. But you talk about a deep threat. Calvin Ridley is one of the best when he's fully healthy. But like you said, he's going to be a free agent. He's had injury problems the last 2 years. He didn't even play a full year last year. He missed 2 games last season. And and then he missed a lot this year. So there's obviously things that you have to work around. But if you get a healthy Calvin Ridley, I mean, you're getting one of the best deep threats right there.
Also, a lot of people compared Mac Jones to Matt Ryan. Maybe that maybe it works out like that.
I've just heard New England wanting to trade for an Alabama receiver that went to Atlanta too often, and it never happens. So
exactly.
I don't know why it would change.
One good thing though, Patriots were apparently very interested in Calvin Ridley. They ended up taking, I think they took Isaiah Wynn over him, I believe.
I'll pull that up right now.
Okay. Yeah, I think they ended up taking Isaiah Wynn over him, which is just disappointing, but they were very interested in him apparently. They really liked him. They didn't pull the trigger for some reason, but maybe they still like what they've seen from him. Maybe that's something they bring him back, but I'm sure Odell's a free agent. Chris Godwin's a free agent. Devontae Adams is a free agent. Calvin Ridley is on the trade block. I'm sure we're going to be talking about plenty of these guys. I'm sure we'll have a jersey swap for every single one of them before free agency's over, but I hope we get one guy, whether it's to the draft in the first 2 rounds. I think Mechie would be amazing. I would love to connect those two again. I think Mac would be excited about that. But there's a couple Ohio State receivers who are solid too, but we'll see. I just think I agree with you. I think Mechie would be a good fit, seeing how they already have chemistry. They already kind of know. He already knows the type of ball Mac throws. Mac already knows the type of routes he runs. I think it'd be a great fit. And if he can adapt to the system quickly, I think he'd have a solid rookie year. So getting a number 1 receiver would be huge for this team.
Yeah, so Isaiah Wynn went 23 overall. Calvin Ridley went 4 picks later to Atlanta. And then New England had the 31st pick with Sony Michel. So maybe they're hoping that he would fall to 31. But, if they liked him that much, why not take him at 23 and see if Isaiah Wynn falls to 31 or something? Because at that point, I think Sony Michel was kind of a shocker of a pick, even though he turned out to be good. But for that to be a first-round running back, I think was a little bit shocking. So, you never know. Too. Yeah, exactly. We won't bring that one up, but
a lot too many of those things have happened to the Patriots in recent years. So if they can get on a good draft, that'll be good. But all right, you got anything else about the general part of the season?
No, we'll have a lot more. Yeah, you're gonna say we'll have a lot more coverage. We'll probably be doing these once a week, and we'll have probably film and our lists of who we want, top at each position, and talk about different things. And then obviously once free agency and the draft hits, it will be, time to see how accurate we were, which we probably won't be accurate because they'll trade down for offensive center.
Yeah, offensive center.
But
yes, they'll trade down. We'll trade down, and that's just that would be the most disappointing thing. But that's what the Patriots do, though. I don't know if you were on the same boat because I hadn't talked to you yet, but in that in the draft where we got Duggar, a lot of people wanted some different linebackers, Patrick Queen, Kenneth Murray. And I was a big component of that. I wanted that as well. And then we traded back. I was so pissed. And then Chargers took Murray after that. And then Ravens got Patrick Queen not too long later. And then we took a Division II safety from Lenore Ryan. I was like, what is going on? I was like, this is so Patriots, but I'm glad we got Duggar. He's a stud. Boston headline. You're all good. We kind of just touched on most of the Patriot stuff, but we're going to get into picks here soon, but we're going to have another show next week as well. Going into our original season predictions, we're going to go over probably some awards of the MVP, defensive, offensive, rookies of the year, all that good stuff next week as well. So stay tuned for that. But
it's pretty much going to be as big as the Grammys. So if you miss it, that's on you. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably going to be on live television as well.
Yeah.
I think the same network, actually.
I think they're picking us up, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's going to be the Patties instead of the Grammys. It's the Patties.
Oh boy, Jason knows what's coming tomorrow. What's coming tomorrow?
It's the collab that we all did.
Oh yeah.
Okay, top 5 plays for
all right.
Me. Me, Boston headline did it. Gabe Pats did it, and then you did it. So there's 4 of us that all have our top 5 plays.
Were they all pretty similar?
They're all pretty similar, just a little bit different order. And then there were 1 or 2 that made it on a couple different lists that weren't on, but. There was. I think you can picture what some of them were.
Did anybody else have my Damian Harris one?
I considered it, but I did not have that one. I did not have it, but I considered it. So
All right. Yeah.
cool.
But
Well,
so we'll have that next week as well. But yeah, so we'll move on to the let me pull this up. The standings. The standings for the season for our over unders and all that stuff. So this past week, for the Bills game on the over unders, I went 4-4. Jace went 3-5, and then for the score predictions, so the spread predictions, I went 6-0. Jace went 4-2.
That's two back-to-back undefeated weeks, right? Because that was 7-0, and now you're 6-0.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Two good weeks.
We're getting better. We should go to Vegas.
Yeah, I based on our numbers, we would be positive, but it wouldn't. It'd be sketchy. It'd be a little bit sketchy. And the total on the year for the over unders, I went 56-43, so that the over unders are done. You went 52-47. So we're pretty close. We were pretty close though. So right. On the over unders, that's done. And then the score predictions on the year, we both had 6 wins, so we tied in that. So that's over for the Patriots, the over unders and the score predictions. Then for the spread predictions, that's not over yet. We still got the rest of the season left. I am 50-31, and Jace is 42-39. So if I just did spread predictions in Vegas, I'd be doing pretty good so far. But unfortunately, it's not legal where I live, and it is.
One sec, we got a crazy Bills fan in our chat.
Oh, come on, get
out of here
with the Bills talk. Gabe Bills coming in here late in the stream. It's unbelievable.
Well, we're talking about the Bills. Let's get into our picks for this week. That will be the Sunday night game. But let's get into it. The Saturday afternoon game, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. Cincinnati Bengals not hosting on the road against the 1 seed Titans. Derrick Henry expected to be back. Titans are a 3.5-point favorite. Who do you got here?
I got the Titans. I kind of gotta stick with I got them winning the Super Bowl, so I gotta have them beating the Bengals here. The Bengals defensive line I think is beat up a little bit. Their stud defensive end, what is it, Henderson? What's his right?
Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah. He has a concussion. He was limited in practice today, but their defensive line is apparently beat up a little bit. So that's not good if you're getting a fresh Derrick Henry against a beat up defensive line. I think that I think Ryan Izzo will probably be the key contributor, like Gabe said here, to lead them to win the AFC and the Super Bowl. I think Izzo will probably have 4 touchdowns this week against the Bengals. That's going to be a big performance from him. If the Patriots would have had Ryan Izzo this past week, we probably would have beat the Bills. I think he probably accounts for that 30-point separation. So that's unfortunate. Shouldn't have never let him go. But I think the Titans are going to win this one. I think Titans are.
Hey, we got a 7th round pick for Izzo. So in remembrance of him, the least we can do is draft a Hall of Famer
with the 7th round pick. I mean, we have to make up for losing Izzo.
Yeah.
But I think the Titans win this one. I think they're too good. Number 1 seed at home. Derrick Henry's coming back. They're probably off the bye week a little better rested. Julio, AJ Brown, all these guys. They're too talented. Vrabel's too good of a coach to lose to a young team and a young head coach like this, I think.
Yeah, this is tough because I think this is one of the games that I could see going either way. But I agree with you. I think the Titans coming off the bye at home, Derrick Henry coming back. I don't see Cincinnati being physical enough to stop that run game, and missing if Hendricks is out, that's a big loss. So I'm gonna go with the Titans covering this too. But I think this could be a shock. I agree with what the Pat Staley said here. This could be a shock right here. Bengals could be going to the AFC Championship game, but not on my watch. I'm not going to pick them. So let's move on to the Saturday night game. 49ers at the Packers. Packers 5.5-point favorites.
Since he's defense, bad matchup for the Titans offense. Yeah, I agree there.
That's the big thing for me.
This one's a tough one. I don't think the Packers and the Niners match up that well. We saw what the Niners did to them a couple years ago to get to the Super Bowl. Jimmy G threw the ball like 8 times and they ended up winning. Packers beat the Niners early in the season this year. I'm going to take the Packers, but I think I might take the Niners to cover. I think the Packers will win, but I think I might take the Niners to cover. I think it's going to be a close game as long as Jimmy G doesn't try to throw the game away again. I think it could be a little bit closer maybe than people expect. I think Aaron Rodgers, and depending on how the guys they get back play, I think that could be huge, but I'm going to take the Niners to cover. I think they're a good team, and if they can, if Bosa is good to go, which that's actually a huge question mark. If Bosa and Warner are good to go, I'm going to take the Niners to cover. If they're both out, then that kind of ruins the pick, and I would take the Packers. But I'm going to go with the Niners covering this one. Packers winning.
Boo! I was going to pick the Niners. You're supposed to go with Rodgers because you believe in him.
Sorry.
That's fine.
Sorry,
I agree.
bad.
I'm going with the Niners, and if I'm wrong on this one on my playoff bracket, I'll be fine. I think the Niners, other than the Bengals, I think the Niners are the one team too that can go into Lambeau and upset them. They've done it the last 3 times they've played in the playoffs.
You're taking them to win.
I'm taking them to win too.
Okay, all right.
I have no faith in Jimmy G at all. But if Nick Bosa comes back, Fred Warner sounds like he'll be back. The versatility of Deebo Samuel against that defense, I like the Niners going in here. And obviously, if they don't win, but they still cover, I still win. But I'm gonna go shock the world and say the Niners win this one also.
I think the Niners have a chance to make a little run. I don't disagree with you. We said that in our Super Bowl predictions. We both said that we think the Niners could be that team that comes out of, I guess, nowhere and kind of upsets a few teams and makes a little run. I don't think they'll win the Super Bowl, but I think if there's any low-seeded team that has a chance, I think it's the Niners. I really do. With that defense, that defensive line, if you can put pressure on the quarterback, that run game, if Jimmy G just is a facilitator and they put the ball in their playmakers' hands, I think they have like a top 4 passing offense in the NFL this year to go along with their great rushing offense, which is crazy. If their defense can hold up and their offense continues to do their thing and Jimmy G doesn't keep missing wide open throws, we could see a Brady versus Jimmy G in the NFC Championship. That would be great. But I think the Packers are too good right now to lose to them. I think it's going to be a great game though. That's why I have the Niners covering.
Kyle Shanahan is a mastermind offensive coordinator, and what he can do with Deebo Samuel and cover up some of Jimmy G's question marks and flaws that he has. He's a master. So I have faith in him. I would love to see a Jimmy G Brady NFC Championship game. So speaking of it, do we have the Buccaneers covering the 3.5 or the 3-point spread against the Rams to go to the NFC Championship game?
I know what you're going to pick on this one. I have the Bucs winning this and going to the NFC Championship versus the Packers in my Super Bowl predictions. But the way I saw the Rams play this past week, I know it was against the Cardinals. I know the Cardinals stink.
The Cardinals are horrible.
I'm just worried about what's the one way to beat Brady? Get interior pressure up the middle in his face all day. They have Aaron Donald, Von Miller. I'm worried. I mean, we could see Tristan Wirfs. He might not play. He's on a bum ankle. Their center got injured. He ended up playing again, I think, but their offensive line's a little bit banged up. Brady is down 2 of his top weapons. He's got Mike Evans, and they just beat the Eagles handily, but the Eagles stink. I'm a little bit concerned. The Rams offense is good. The Rams defense is good. I think it's going to be another really close game, but I think I'm going to take the Rams to upset the Bucs. I'm just worried that there's going to be too much pressure in Brady's face, and if their offensive line is not healthy against the Rams defense, that's scary. And if Jalen Ramsey can lock up Mike Evans for the most part, there's not a lot of weapons outside of that Brady can rely on, especially if he doesn't have much time. So I think could be possibly a frustrating game for Brady. And if Aaron Donald's in the backfield all day along with Von Miller, it's not going to be great for the Bucs. So I think it's going to be a great game. I'm rooting for the Bucs, but I think the Rams might pull off the upset here.
No concern for me. The Rams beat a horrible. The Cardinals might have been the worst playoff team. I mean, outside the Steelers. Sorry, I should say that.
The Eagles also were like 0-8 against winning teams this year in the NFL. So
You're
I think
right.
they were pretty bad too.
The Eagles at least had a presence of a run game. They were at least decent in the run game. And I think the Buccaneers defense is coming back into what we saw them play the Super Bowl. They're getting healthy again. They're playing good, forcing turnovers. I think they can make Matthew Stafford, throw a couple of those interceptions.
And that's what I'm worried about.
For pick sixes.
Late in the year,
Matthew
he was
Stafford,
throwing picks. Yeah.
Yep. So, and I agree. I see your concerns. Without Godwin and Antonio Brown on the outside, it makes a lot more pressure on Mike Evans with just Jalen Ramsey there. But and the offensive line does make me worried, but I'm not taking Brady to lose. I'm not picking against him. I got the Bucs covering this one. This is Bucks all the way now since the Patriots are out of it. But let's move to the Sunday night game, the one that we do not want to see. And honestly, I don't really care. But Bills at Chiefs, 2.5-point favorite. Who do you got here?
I'm taking them to tie in the NFL to kick them both out of the playoffs.
And put the Patriots in as a replacement.
Put the Patriots back in because both teams are out. So
and then Cincinnati wins, and since we took over this game, we get home field advantage. It only makes sense.
Exactly. And since Brian Hoyer almost beat the Chiefs last year, that puts us in over them. And then we beat the Bills this year. So they put the Patriots in the playoffs. We host. They kick the Titans out too because they're the 1 seed. So that just, we beat the Titans. So now we're the 1 seed. So that it just, and then we host and we go to the Super Bowl and beat the Bucks. That's my
simple.
No, I think this game is going to be a heck of a game. I'm going to be pissed either way. I don't want either team to win. The winner of this might be going to the Super Bowl. That's very possible. I'd rather see the Chiefs win this than the Bills, and that kills me to say because I hate the Chiefs. I hate the Chiefs, but I might hate the Bills even more. I hope Sean McDermott never wins anything in his life. I'm just not a fan of that team. But honestly, I have the Chiefs winning this in my Super Bowl bracket, but I'm going with the Bills. I'm going with the Bills to cover and win this game. They played so well. I don't think Josh Allen's going to play as perfect as he did because we were so deprived of anybody who can cover anybody this past game and any pressure on Josh Allen that it wasn't tough. It was an easy game for them. And I know they're playing at the Chiefs Stadium, but the Bills' defense is better than the Chiefs' defense. And if it's coming down to 2 high-flying offenses against whatever defense is best, I think the Bills' defense wins that matchup more often than the Chiefs' defense does. So I'm going to take the Bills. I think it's going to be a heck of a game. I'm glad it's on at 6:30. I won't be up too late watching it. I can go to bed at a decent hour. But it's going to be a fun game. It really is going to be a fun game to watch as a fan, even though I hate both these teams. But I'm going to take the Bills just because their defense, I think both offenses are pretty electric. I think the Chiefs have maybe more of a run game, but recently the Bills' run game's been kind of coming on here as of late. So I'm going to take the Bills, but it's going to be a good game.
There is no way the Chiefs play worse than the Patriots and that Josh Allen plays better than what he did against the Patriots. So I'm going with the Chiefs here. Their defense is playing way better than what New England's was. It's at Kansas City. It's going to be a crazy atmosphere. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. A lot of it's because I can't pick the Bills. I hate them too. No matter who wins it. Yeah, I mean, it's Gabe hit it.
Gabe
like,
knows.
This is, Gabe knows.
He knows.
It's just everyone knows who the real champion of the AFC is, and
exactly,
it's a Patriots.
Just because we're sitting at home doesn't mean we're not Super Bowl champions right now.
Yeah, they just didn't want to have to crown us for the 7th time. I mean,
they wouldn't let a rookie quarterback win a 7th Super Bowl for the Patriots in his first year. So never thought I'd root for Mahomes in my life. I agree. And I wouldn't call it rooting for Mahomes because I can't ever root for Mahomes, but I'm going to be okay with Mahomes winning over Allen here and the Bills. I'll say that, but this game pains me.
It would kind of be awesome to see the Bills go to the Super Bowl to play the Bucks, and then for Brady to beat them and ruin their dreams
one more time
for good time's sake, right?
You got all your hopes up. You beat the Patriots. You're like, yes, we're going to the Super Bowl. Oh, it's against Brady and the Bucks. We're about to lose again. All right,
you might beat the Patriots, but you never beat the Patriots, dude. If you're the Buffalo Bills,
exactly.
So just remember that, Bills fans. You can say you guys own the AFC East now, but just remember, until you beat Brady in the Super Bowl, you never really own the Patriots. So,
and I mean, even if they lose to the Chiefs here, Joe Tooney, he's on the Chiefs.
Yeah.
If they lose to the Titans in the next round, they got
Mike Vrabel.
Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, come on.
I mean, either way, they're losing to the Patriots regardless, unless they win the Super Bowl. Then that's just unfortunate, and I hope that doesn't happen. But
yes,
it's gonna be a good game. It's gonna be a good game. Exactly. Yeah, Mahomes' wife and brother make me hate them. They certainly don't help. I mean, I saw him wearing a jacket the other day that had their last name spelled wrong. It's like, dude, what is going on? It's ridiculous. But hopefully Jackson Mahomes does not go on the field, because apparently anytime he's on the field and making stupid TikToks and stuff, then the Chiefs end up playing worse. So maybe he'll stay off the field and the Chiefs will play okay and just beat the Bills.
Yeah, just let your brother be the only Mahomes on the field. So
yeah,
yeah.
He's the one getting paid a lot of money for a reason. You're not. You just stay over there.
Yeah. Go in the box and do whatever you do. Film your TikToks up there where it's private. So But I also I don't think I can deal with watching another Brittany Mahomes screaming video.
Oh my God.
Of her
See,
annoying.
this is why Mac Jones's girlfriend is great. You know, she doesn't say anything, just quietly supports Mac. They post their pictures together. She lights dinner on fire once in a while. But I mean, what's the big deal? She's not screaming at different stuff and making stupid videos and going viral for stupid reasons. You know, that's my quarterback, and you know that's what we like to see right there from the significant other. Patrick Mahomes did not do a good job choosing. Mac Jones did.
The most viral video that Mac Jones's girlfriend has ever had is when whatever was on fire. Was it a cake or something?
No, she was broiling chicken, and she lit it on fire, and then they ordered
just like Mac Jones, just calm Mac walking it outside. Like, imagine what Mahomes' girl would have done. Oh my gosh! Then Jackson Mahomes might have twerked on the burning chicken.
Exactly. Oh, fire!
Oh. hey, Brittany, come throw some money on me. Like, who knows what would have happened with that family? So that would have been interesting. But no, just cool, calm, and collected. Mac Jones' sweet little girlfriend.
Exactly.
Come help me, honey.
Running plays in the
No
backyard too. I mean,
yeah,
it's just how can you hate that right there? That's awesome.
That's why the Patriots didn't trade up and get Mahomes, is because we knew like his wife's a distraction. So
yeah, we didn't want to deal with that. No distractions in New England. We couldn't deal with that family. No.
All right. Well, that's it for me. Thank you guys for tuning in again. We'll be back on next week and be discussing the awards, like we said, more of the season in depth. And obviously it's time to start talking about the offseason. I wish it wasn't so soon and we didn't have to talk about it right now, but that's the reality of it. We're on the clock at 21 and we got about 20 million in cap space to work with and see what they do. So I'm excited to start this process. So we got anything else?
On Twitter, his wife was pissed because there's a late hit on Mahomes. She tweeted, "I swear if you hit him late again, what's 120-pound Max going to do to a defensive tackle?" Oh, yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. They can't stay in their own lane and focus on their own stuff, but whatever, is what it is. Yeah, no. That's it for me as well. For those of you still watching, I just want to say thank you for watching this year. It was a fun first year doing this podcast, and it hasn't officially been a year. That's in like the summer or whatever, but first full season of doing this podcast and covering the Patriots and stuff. So this was awesome. I appreciate all you guys subscribing, liking all the videos and coming here to hang out and tune in, chat with us, ask your questions, all that good stuff. So it's been a fun season so far. We appreciate all the support you guys have brought this year and hopefully continue to bring throughout the off season, because we're not slowing down. We're going to keep going. I think this content's going to be just as fun as this entire season. I think we got a lot planned on our plate. I think we're going to be going over some prospects, doing a bunch of draft stuff. We're going to do live mock drafts. We'll have you guys maybe in here, join us, make picks, all that good stuff. So I think it's going to be a really fun off season. We're going to be covering the team in full depth, and any news, stuff like that. We'll be going live for some of the big stuff, free agent signings, draft, all that stuff. So thank you guys for all the support this year and everything. And I'm excited to see what this is going to be in the future and for the rest of this year and stuff. And Bill suck. We'll end on this. You got anything else? You all set? Nope. That's it. Bill suck. Peace. Hey, you guys for tuning in. Bill suck. We're out of here.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Patriots Drive podcast. Follow us on social media to stay up to date with all things New England Patriots. Make sure you tune in to the next episode and check out PatriotsDrive.com for more great content. We're on to Cincinnati.